All right, super excited to have a few minutes here today with Ray Huang from Canopy Connect. Ray, I know I've seen on the travel circuit many times, manning the Canopy Connect booth, and it's so exciting that Canopy Connect is now a partner of Catalyit, and we can do fun stuff like this. Ray, thank you so much for making some time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Casey.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Last year, in my first year at Catalyit, I was speaking at an event in a state I'd never been to, and I said something about Canopy. And I said it just like that because in my terminology and in the circles I tend to flow in, when you say Canopy, people know Canopy Connect. But I've understood now also that there are some different ponds that people are swimming in on the agency side. Not all of them are super tech forward. Knowing that I think of you all as a name brand, what are you doing to get your name out there, educate agents about what they can be doing from a data intake, expediting their data intake on the personal
Yep.
line side if agents maybe aren't as tech forward? How are you getting in front of those agencies?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing a good amount of marketing. Most people have probably seen our ads on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all that stuff. And we're also participating in a lot of conferences, the big I conferences. We're connected with a lot of the agency networks. And then we've just got a great set of integration partners as well. So we are quickly becoming a name brand. It was not long ago when I first joined 3 years ago. I'd go to a conference, and usually my shtick is, have you heard about Canopy Connect? And 3 years ago, it was, I tell them, and they're like, oh, got it. Now I go to conferences and they're like, Canopy Connect. Yeah. Tell me more because I've seen you guys. We do a lot of silly memes and fun stuff, hopefully trying to make light of how difficult and painful it is to collect insurance information, intake insurance information, and all the different challenges that people face.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So speaking of that, there could be people watching or listening to this that have no idea that I touched on it. So just the elevator pitch, like what is Canopy Connect and how does it help agents?
Yeah, so Canopy Connect is a modern insurance intake platform. We think of the entire quoting process. You request a quote, then there's the intake step of getting as much good information as you can before you go advising them and go running quotes. So trying to take a lot of that friction out of collecting the right information. How we work is send out a link as an agent to the prospect. Prospect would open it up, find their insurance carrier, and sign in. By doing that, they're authorizing sharing all their insurance information with you, their agent. You can then ask them custom questions from forums. We've got other little bells and whistles to upload a deck page and analyze all that stuff. All that data gets put into a dashboard so you can look at all their coverage information, what policies they have, limits, deductibles, premiums. You can look at the vehicle information. We enrich a lot of the property. Anytime there's an address that gets pulled in, we'll enrich it with property data so you know roof type, foundation, bed, bath, square footage, all that stuff that you need to know. So you don't have to go to Zillow or whatever other system to get all that. We are also getting claims information, loss histories for commercial submissions, and driver information as well. Click a button and send that over to your rater, your CRM, your AMS, whatever systems you want to work in the most. We've got integrations with all the major raters for sure.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that agencies that are still collecting data to quote either over the phone or on a sheet, there's a better way. Not only is it faster, but as you just touched on, it's so much more accurate because having somebody give you a 17-digit VIN and you're like, did you say S or F? Can I read my own handwriting?
Right.
Canopy takes that out of the equation.
One of the big hurdles, right? A lot of people are probably using some version of a really long form that you've sent them to fill out. Maybe you do that same version, but on the phone, asking them questions. The challenge I see with those approaches is the insured, they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. They may not realize their different wind and hail deductibles. Like that's different than your standard deductible. And all those little nuances, they may tell you one thing, the truth may be something far different. Sometimes they don't know an answer. And if you're on the phone with them, they feel a weird pressure to not say, I don't know, because they don't want to feel stupid. And I think it's okay. It's okay for people not to know. It's not their job. It's not their day to day, but they'll just give you an answer thinking, I just want to get through this process. And you end up, okay, now I've got bad information. And then you return a quote and they go, oh, it turns out I only had 100, 300, and you're quoting me 500,000. No wonder you're so much more expensive, but they may or may not see that. Hopefully you're doing better price shopping, but you need to explain and justify the value. Your new policy might be more expensive, but the coverages are different.
Sure.
If you can make the case like that is not going to be enough if there's some situation that happens, we recommended this, and this is why, and this is why this is a little bit more. Does that make sense? So you can do that sort of side by side, apples to oranges comparison, however you want to play it, but you have all that information to do that.
Right. Yeah. And you eliminate one of my biggest pet peeves when I was writing insurance, when someone actually does send you a deck page and it's got certain things blacked out.
Yeah.
I need to know more than you drive a 2025. So when it comes to the origin story, were you at Canopy Connect at the beginning? Do you know the origin story, the light bulb moment?
I know the origin story and I'm happy to share it. I came in about 2 years later once it was built and we've been refining it since. But the origin story, so our founder, Tolga Tezel, back in 2020, maybe even 2019, he's out having dinner with his friend and his friend's mom, and his mom's an insurance agent. She's lamenting about her day. Like, oh, what went wrong? I had this client and blah, blah, blah. What she ended up doing was dropped everything, drove over to the client's house, helped them log into their insurance carrier. Like they gave them the password, and she went, found the thing, downloaded it, emailed it back to herself, sure, had some pleasantries, and then went back to her office to finish running the quote. And hey, kudos for high touch service, but that's not scalable. That's not how you're going to grow your business. And she was talking about that, and Tolga's an engineer, and his brain was going. He's like, I could fix that. There's companies like Plaid or however you connect your bank account to other apps. That's not common technology, but that's out there. It's a proven model. So what if we take that and build it? So he started tinkering or whatever the equivalent of building something in your garage is these days. Got 20, 30 carriers on board, which like the top carriers that covers a good chunk of the market. And he started shopping that around and people were like, wow, that's really interesting. And over the years, we've gone from 30 carriers to 100 carriers to well over 300 carriers now across personal and commercial lines. It's been growing tremendously. If you look at it from a market share perspective, we cover 96% of the auto market and 91% of the homeowners market. Except for those weird edge cases or specialty things, we've got all those carriers in there. Or so you have the confidence of, hey, whatever your prospect previously had or currently has, like you can be confident that it's going to work through Canopy Connect.
Sure. That's exciting. I love that origin story. I only had to go to a prospect or client's home once, maybe twice in 6 years. But above and beyond feels good in the moment, but you can't scale that. That's
Right, right. There's moments, I think, just being in business, being in service or as a consultant, or for us, like we want to provide good service, but a lot of times good service comes at a cost of usually a ton of time, a ton of effort that is not scalable. We've got little tools that help us. And I feel like Canopy Connect is one of those things where it's like your service, the value that you provide as an insurance agent is not actually collecting insurance information. It's in looking at the insurance information, looking at your clients' needs, having a conversation with them, right? That's your high touch moment. If I'm going to spend half an hour with you, I don't want to spend 20 of it asking you questions that I can get in 30 seconds through Canopy Connect. I'd rather get that. And now we can have a half-hour conversation where we're actually building rapport and trust. And I can actually advise you
yeah.
and talk to you about what you currently have and why what I'm going to run you is going to be some higher limits or vice versa, right? Or maybe you're realizing you're underinsured in a lot of different ways. That's the value an agent brings to that conversation. It's not in asking you the questions.
Now, I haven't ever done this on one of these conversations. Derek Burke had a great post on LinkedIn. I think it was this week or it might have been last week. Sometimes the algorithm gets a little
Yeah.
delayed. He was talking about how just sending a Canopy link isn't enough. So, in terms of helping agencies that are leveraging Canopy Connect, what kind of resources or strategies have you all helped them employ to get better success rate for prospects and clients actually going through the Canopy process?
So when you're talking about it in the quoting process, one of the key things to the process is, hey, can we do something that is repeatable and systemized and not just something that John's going to use? This is something that all the producers are going to use in a systemized way. So from a like agency owner management perspective, like how do we put steps in place where this is the default way that we do things? There's always going to be edge cases. The default should be like, how do we operationalize this so everyone's using it and everyone's trained to use it in the same way? Part of that comes through what automations can we do. So if you're working with a CRM system, quote comes in, you can turn around and send an automation or even on that confirmation page that says, okay, great, next steps, we need to have the information that we need. So we, by policy, we want to see your previous policies. Here's an easy way to connect it. So you just have to give it a little bit of context. So if you just say, here's a link to this random company that you've never heard of, go log in, that feels tricky and insecure, and I'd be hesitant as a consumer
Mhm.
if I didn't have the context on why I'm doing this. So providing the why, I think, is important. Also, just saying this is our process of this is the next step. The next step is not getting on the phone with me. The next step is doing this, and then we'll schedule that call. The faster we can get through that, like the faster you can go from I want a quote to let's have a conversation is great. But if you can get all that information in the in-between time before you have that call the next day, or it could be an hour later, it doesn't need to be a long time to do this, but it's just process. So setting up the automations to send that out, not just one. If nothing happens after 12 hours or whatever, you send out the second one. Depends on how aggressive you want to be as an agency. One email can very easily go into the ether. If you've got it set up for text message and they're opted in, you can also send those links out automatically via text. Systemizing it that way is a key, and whatever playbooks you're using to run your agency, like that needs to be built into there. This is how we do it. This is how we analyze and look at information that is collected and what do we do with it next.
To take that a step further, one of those talking points I have with a lot of agencies is that a process, and this is the next step, or this is the first step, and leaning on a tool like Canopy to almost be a gatekeeper to help profitability. Because if someone's not willing to do this, then they're probably also not going to be the most profitable client because they're going to be the client that thinks they need to call you for everything. Walk away from those prospects that you can identify early on. You're going to be in the red on those clients over a year versus this is a client who respects and understands process and technology. They're my ideal client. Therefore, they're
Yeah.
also probably my most profitable client.
Yeah, we hear that from a lot of agents. They're like, yeah, I use it almost as a screening tool. If you're not willing to play ball and work the way that I want to work, then that ruins your efficiency and profitability, and you might be getting pain in the ass clients or whatever. Again, I think your agency needs to be at a certain point where you feel comfortable turning away business. I think there's always, I'll take anything I can get and I'll go drive to your house if that's what it takes. But at a point, you grow out of that. I think every agency or agent probably goes through that growth phase. And I think some people never quite get out of it because that's just the cycle that they build because they think I'm giving high touch white glove service. But for me as I don't know, elder millennial or elder Gen X, senior millennial, I just want to get this done as quickly as possible. If you've ever gotten a mortgage, they're like, here's the next steps. You got to get all your documents together, put them into a portal
Mhm.
somewhere, and you're just like, okay, yes, sir. I'll go do that because I really want this house. Buying a house is a high stakes thing. So you're the expert. Let me
Right.
do it. And for some reason, there's a feeling, and I think it comes from the difference between being an advisor versus feeling like you're selling. The dynamic is different. If your mindset, I'm an advisor, this is how we do things, and this is the process. Your agency is going to reflect that, and your clientele is going to reflect that. And I think that makes a big difference.
Oh, I think a lot of agencies, like you said, early on, maybe you can't walk away from opportunities because you have to have revenue to keep the lights on. But I think that leads to the mentality or culture of being an order taker instead of being a professional. The sooner agencies can shed that order taker mentality, the better for sure. So let's pivot a little bit to the degree that you can talk about what's next or what's coming that you're excited about with Canopy Connect. Is there anything you can share that current users ready to
Mhm.
experience or maybe new prospects haven't even thought of yet that would drive them to Canopy Connect now?
I'll say we're constantly iterating and making our product better and easy to use and creating alternative ways to collect insurance information. About a year and a half ago, we introduced more robust forms, and we've constantly over the last few years been building out more integrations. So what, because it's once you get the data, you got to do something with it. We make it easy to send it to different raters. That stuff's been in process, and we're constantly releasing new ones. We have recently made a bunch of improvements to how we process deck pages specifically. So someone says, I have my deck page and I want to just give it to you. You can go into Canopy Connect through the same link. They'll have the ability to upload a deck page. We're leveraging some large language models. It's proprietary stuff. We're able to analyze a deck page, which is a very unique document because when you start dealing with data tables and right, like co property limits, deductible, like you have columns, like your standard OCR thing is not going to read it correctly. So we've got a proprietary thing and we're starting to use language models to, we've literally seen millions of deck pages come through our system. So we've trained our system to understand, oh, that one came in, and I know that is a deck page from travelers, and this is how travelers' data is structured in these deck pages. We've mapped all that stuff out. So we're able to do that with a ton better accuracy than if you were to just use a standard OCR or what a lot of other vendor technologies are doing, trying to extract the data and then do something with it. That's been a big development, just an alternative way for people to get information.
Mhm.
We've got this new Chrome plugin called Policy Paste, which is really exciting. Right now, we've got integrations with different raters, but not all your carriers are on the raters, or they don't do the best when going through. People would prefer to go directly. It's a Chrome plugin that will pre-fill information collected from Canopy Connect into any other form, any other web form. If you go directly to a carrier portal and you can plug that in and that all pre-fills automatically. You can make the sort of adjustments you need and paste that all in. So that's going to eliminate any rekeying, copy here, paste here. That can be super annoying. That product came out earlier in the year, but it's just been getting better and better every month. So that one is what people are super excited about. And then other things like people are less, I'll say less aware of that we've already had is our ability to pull in commercial information from commercial carriers. And that usually includes loss run data as that's a big friction point when you need to go, okay, now I got to go request loss runs before I can even start the quote. And that takes 3 days or a week or however long that ends up taking. You get blocked out of markets. Like this lets you get that information up front so you can plug it in and then go from there. So those are some of the cool, fun things.
Yeah, those are awesome. What about maybe not Canopy specifically, but you're in the tech space and I'm sure you pay attention to a lot of things that are happening. What are you most excited about in terms of what from whether it's AI or automation or just in general business tools that maybe you use on a daily basis? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, I think just basic automations are still widely underutilized and underused. While everyone is busy talking and thinking about shortcuts with AI, it's weird to me that you wouldn't try to get the thing that you can manually automate working to understand how data should flow. This triggers that, just trigger that. And everyone's trying to like sidestep that and go straight to AI. Maybe AI can magically spit out what I need. I hear some people talk about AI like it is this magical black box that works. And it's like there's a lot of vendors out there that are starting to leverage AI in their products. We're starting to as well in very like focused things. I was mentioning the deck page stuff, like we built our own thing and then we layered where we were literally like, that's this deck page and this is where the data goes. And we were manually configuring a lot of that stuff. Now we're layering the AI into it to make that go a lot faster so we can reach a lot more scale with what deck pages are recognized and all that. You do the work, you figure out the automation, then you go, okay, how can AI make this better? How can AI enhance it? And I think a lot of people are trying to sidestep it or just think it's like magic.
Right. Yeah. Whether it's automation or AI, if you don't have a process that everybody's following and you don't have clean data and you don't know where you need help, you're just putting
Yeah.
technology or AI into it, hoping it's some kind of magic that fixes
Yeah.
all of these underlying foundational problems. And it's not. In fact, just yesterday or the day before, I actually uploaded my fantasy football roster into ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, you're a fantasy football superstar expert, and I need you to identify 6 players that I have to cut from my team. I did record parts of it because it kept telling me to cut players that were like not should not have cut and players that are like injured and out for the season already. Not all what we're talking about. But if it doesn't fit into a very specific step in a process or provide some kind of value, it's not necessarily going to change anything for you.
And I think extending on that is there's a lot of vendors that I feel like, oh, we got to get AI into our product so we can start talking about our product using AI. And they're just shoehorning it in there as well. Oh, it's AI data enrichment. It's AI powered whatever. I think what has happened is everyone's saying, oh, we've got some version of AI, and everyone that actually uses it is not quite there. I think we've all experienced software like that, and then you lose trust and you create distrust. I'm worried that there will become, I think there's already a little bit, but a little more skepticism and distrust. When a company says they have AI, then you have to really figure out, is it real? Is it actually useful? Or are they just saying it to say it?
A question I've started asking recently at conventions and conferences and some of these conversations. So again, I'm asking you unprepared,
Yeah.
but given the space that you're in and the conversations that we've had in person, are there any, I guess you could call them influencers, but maybe not even influencers, but any content creators, podcasters, experts in the field that you know and maybe not know, but you trust and value, maybe on LinkedIn or podcasts or anything like that, that you could share that maybe somebody listening to this could say, oh, Ray listens to so and so, I'm going to listen to him too.
Yeah, I think it's useful to hear those voices, different perspectives and different lenses and just different ways of thinking. I think the agency world's already familiar with the Jason Casses of the world, Ryan Hanley, David Carruthers. Those guys are like insurance famous, insurance celebrities, if you will. Beyond that, I still look to a lot of sales techniques and behavioral psychology kind
Okay.
of stuff. That stuff's really interesting to me. It takes extra steps because they're not insurance people. And part of it's me being a marketer. One guy I follow is Rory Sutherland, who's an ad guy, used to work for Ogilvy, British guy. But he's always talking about different psychology. We did this thing, and it's not the logical thing you would have thought. The way the brain actually works is it shortcuts it. And he comes up with stuff like that. And he's pretty prominent in the advertising world and just behavioral psychology. That stuff's fascinating to me. And then I just like I enjoy Freakonomics and that sort of stuff. It's very similar. These things happen because this is how people act. People are not actually rational. They're actually irrationally rational. And I think that's generally fascinating, just learning different things. Within my company, I'm like a trivia buff guy. Let's get on a team together. I think we can kill it. I'm full of random stuff, but
Okay.
that sort of behavioral economics, behavioral psychology, that stuff's like really interesting to me. I haven't read a book on it, but that's the stuff I like to passively listen to. A lot of my TikTok scroll is that sort of stuff. And a lot of that bleeds into sales as well. A lot of sales techniques come into that. I listen to that stuff, but I don't, it's not something I can readily apply all the time, but I think it's really fascinating.
Your Freakonomics, obviously, I did fist pump. I read Freakonomics and Super Freakonomics, and I listen a lot. I learned so much from them, and I think it applies directly, even though they're not talking insurance or AI or anything specific. But the psychology behind sales and human behavior is super important. That's cool. Then I think we're fellow nerds in that way. So,
That's right. I knew I liked you.
yeah. Awesome. Ray, I think I've taken up more than enough of your time. I really appreciate your partnership. I appreciate seeing you on the road, and also Nick, Derek, and Casey whenever on the Big I circuit. So look forward to seeing them all again in person. Maybe I'll see you. You mentioned Cass. Will I see you in Fort Lauderdale in January?
That'll probably be Nick and Derek Burke out
Yeah.
there. I do most of the West Coast stuff. I was just in Florida last week for the Latin American
Very cool.
insurance conference.
We just got up and running with Oregon's Big I, and we've done a couple events out there, and hopefully we can get some more West Coasters. I think I
Yeah.
saw you guys have a Big I in Arizona coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, that's coming up at the end of August.
I hope it's a great show, and really appreciate your time. Anybody listening to this, if any of this resonated, please go to canopyconnect.com, check out Connect with Ray or Derek.
It's actually
Oh,
usecanopy.com.
use canopy.com.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you for the correction. We'll make sure to put that on the screen. Katrina, put that on the screen. Ray, for real, I really appreciate your time. I'm excited for the
absolutely.
partnership, and really look forward to seeing you and your team again soon.
Thanks so much.